Hey there kids, it's me, MrCreepyPasta, and before we get started on tonight's story, I just wanted to tell you a quick little blurb about our sponsor. Safety and security are two very important aspects, as all of you know, I'm sure, listening to many of these horror stories here. Even we must deal with them on a daily basis, and sometimes it can be really hard to find the right solution. So wouldn't it be great if there was one solution which gets rid of most of the problems? Most internet users aren't even aware of the amount of surveillance, limitations, and data mining done with their own personal information on a daily basis. Surfshark VPN can get rid of all of these problems for you with an easy-use, one-for-all solution. Surfshark turns you into an anonymous... Surfshark turns you into an anonymous... Surfshark turns you into an anonymous... Surfshark turns you into an anonymous and hard-to-trace online user and makes the internet a safer and more enjoyable place for you. With the click of a button, you can forget all data mining and intrusive advertisements. Do you know what geo-blocking is? Disney Plus or Netflix, for example, they have different movies for each country. Well, access should not be tied to nationality. Surfshark gives you all the access you need. Just connect to the service and refresh the page. Access granted. I use Surfshark every day. It automatically starts up whenever I turn on my gaming PC or entertainment centers, and whenever I need it, I activate it with one click. Use promo code MrCreepyPasta, all caps, one word, to get 83% off, plus 3 extra months for free. Surfshark offers a 30-day money-back guarantee, so there's no risk, and surf with your own set of rules. The link is in the description down below, and on to tonight's story. I'll preface this by saying this was not my writing. I knew that my great-grandfather, Peter Whitehead, was an explorer, and had made several trips to the Arctic. From what I can ascertain from his journals, he made an attempt at the North Pole in 1907, but was unable to complete the journey. My grandmother asked me to help her with some of the notes and journals that she kept. She thought they might make a good book. I found his journal entries from a trip in 1913, and I do not know what to think of it. I have not told my grandmother at all about it, and I do not know if I really should. Please let me know what I should do with these. October 19th, 1913. Good evening. We've made it the furthest we ever had yesterday. Based on notes that we had from Perry and the guide's estimates, we were perhaps 2 or 3 days until we reached the pole, but I won't be making the whole journey with the rest of the lads. Cabot's leg had soured from the dog bite. The damnable idiot thought to kick at the couple of dogs who had begun a scrap. Captain Turner has sent me, Salem, and Cabot back to Camp 3 to try and save Cabot's leg. Salem doesn't think that we can. The toes have gone black, the wound reeks in the worst way. I dearly hope that we can get Cabot back before the rot takes him whole. We would need to ration the oil as to keep him warm in the night. Warmly, Peter Whitehead. October 20th, 1913. Good evening. Today was truly godforsaken. Salem and I have been trading Cabot from sled to sled to ease the burden on the dogs. We lost the tracks we had laid only a few days before on our way to Camp 3 and made near to the Hartford crevice. The team strayed too far right on me, and before I had the mind to correct them, half the team was over the edge of that empty black abyss, and the whole sled was falling. We had to cut the lead dog free before the wretch took the whole sleigh over. Atka was the best lead dog that we had, but the whole team will sorely miss his leadership and strength. Didn't see where he'd landed. But even now I can hear him crying and whimpering from that icy pit that's now his tomb. His cries are so baleful and solemn, I can't even bear to think of what sort of pain he's going through. Salem checked Cabot's wrappings when he'd settled into the tent. Cabot's legs gone black and sour. The smell's absolutely dreadful. I begged Salem to put the wrappings back on as soon as he removed them from the dark and ruined limb. The stench so foul and loathsome permeated the tent in a miasma of disease. Salem said that the leg will most certainly have been taken. We'll have to hasten our pace to Camp 3. On the one hand, I hope that we can get Cabot to the camp on time, yet on another, I hope we do not. He's cost me a dog, and more importantly, he's cost me another chance at the pole. Warmly, Peter Whitehead. Postscript. It's been several hours since Atka took the terrible fall, and I could still hear him baying and whimpering in the ice-born crypt he's fallen into. Can't bear to hear him suffer like this at all. Cold, dying of some painful wound. Gathered up some pittons and some good rope, as well as a few flares. I endeavor to reach him and put the poor wretch out of his misery, leaving this journal in Salem's hands in case I don't return. October 21st, 1913. Good morning. I'm writing this from the warmth and safety of the tent. The snow has whipped itself into a frenzy, where our poor little tent flaps and shudders, and every gust of frigid northern wind. I went down to the Hartford crevice last night. My pittons and ropes held true, the most ancient of ice. As I descended, I could hear poor Atka whimpering and crying like a child crying for his mother. Every inch further down that pit of Hades, his cries grew louder and louder, as if he knew I was coming, and I was coming to end his misery. I climbed for perhaps 9 fathoms before my feet hit the icy ground. I stuck up a flare upon reaching the bottom and began to search for the fallen sled dog. It was little trouble to find the crimson frozen spot where Atka had struck the floor of the crevice. Yet I couldn't find Atka. His cries echoed through the crevice, as if God himself had fashioned the pit to reverberate all noise throughout itself. The walls of the crevice were fashioned like that of a hedge maze, filled with nonsensical twists and turns so that I could not really find my canine companion. Atka had left a trail of dark crimson blood on the ground. He had dragged himself along. I followed the trail until it seemed to disappear into nothingness, as if poor Atka had been scooped up by some giant hand. The entire time I searched, I could hear Atka whimpering and crying. I couldn't locate him, though. At one point I thought myself very close to him. His crying rose to screaming, as if he were aware of my true intentions. So savage and feral did his voice become that he sounded less canine, more like his savage lupine cousins. Upon using half of my flares and becoming lost several times, I endeavored to return to the surface and warmth of the tent. As I traced my steps back to the rope that I had laid, I could hear a scraping noise accompanying the braying and screams of Atka. As you know, I'm not a feeble man, but in that moment, I'll readily admit I feared the crevice more than I ever feared cold or hunger. It sounded as if some great creature was lurching through that frozen maze in pursuit of me. It seemed as if it was very close to me at some point, though perhaps that was simply a trick of the acoustics of the crevice itself. Perhaps something divine smiled down upon me, for after fumbling through what I was certain would become my own mausoleum, I found the rope and pittons, and I rose from the crevice. All night, we sat and we listened to the screaming and the scraping coming from the crevice. And the longer we listened, the more it seemed as if it were not a dog in pain, but the howls of a frozen hell coming to swallow us up whole. We could still hear the noise coming from the Hartford crevice, and I'll be glad when we rest without fear. I'm setting off now. Warmly, Peter Whitehead. October 21st, 1913. Good evening. The dogs were most perturbed from the noise coming from the crevice and were very apparently ready to make haste from where we had made camp. We rode hard south, expecting the sounds emitting from Atka to lessen as we put distance between ourselves and the crevice. But after half a day of hard travel, the sound was omnipresent as the night that we had spent on the lip of Atka's tomb. The peaks and valleys of the frozen hell echo in a bizarre alien design. After resting for lunch and break, we rode even harder for Camp 3. Salem and I said little to each other, at least not that didn't pertain to Cabot or the dogs. I estimate that we're about 60 miles or so from our camp last night, yet even now, as I sit in the comfort of my quilt and furs, it sounds as if Atka is laying directly outside the tent. Neither Salem nor I will sleep tonight, and although he said nothing of it, Salem and I have both brought our rifles into the tent. Cabot's not woken or stirred since last evening, but Salem confirmed he is still breathing. Warmly, Peter Whitehead. October 22nd, 1913. Good morning. We're perhaps 75 miles from Camp 3, and the warmth and shelter it provides Salem and I are in agreement that we will ride as hard as possible today. We'll not stop until we reach the camp and the fellowship of the other men staying there. The screaming and braying are incessant, as if an eternal wind sustains the voice that emits the most awful of noises. It must be brief, as we have a long day ahead of us. Warmly, Peter Whitehead. Good afternoon. A great deal of progress has been made towards our destination. Atka's screaming dogged at our heels as we pushed further south. All at once, the noise abated and changed directions, as if whatever was chasing us turned and made haste back from whence it came. Even as I write this, I can hear the screaming and wailing fading away into the north. We're not far from camp at this point, and I'll be surely glad when we get there. Warmly, Peter Whitehead. At this point, my great-grandfather's entry is slow. He talks a bit about Cabot's leg needing to be amputated, doing some chores around the camp. The entries are far and few between during time at the camp, and he does not discuss Atka or the noise they fled from anymore. But the last entry in the Arctic 1913 journal gave me the chills. See, I did not know what to do with this journal itself, if I should send this to a college or a museum, or if I should just destroy it. Try to forget about what I read. Please let me know what you think. November 15th, 1913. Good afternoon. Captain Turner and the rest of our party have not returned. Even if they were trapped in a storm and were forced to wait things out, they should have made their way to us by now. The ice is hardening by the day, and if we do not set out soon, we'll be trapped here in the north until the spring arrives. Several of the men want to set north to find the missing party, and although I am ashamed to say it, Salem and I convinced them not to go. Salem and I have convinced most of the others to make our way south to the vessel waiting for us so that we might return home in time for the Yuletide. Hopefully we'll be on our way by the morning. I've yet to hear any more strange noises coming from the north. But I know if we stay, the winter here, it will not be the cold that takes us. Captain Turner and the rest of our comrades are most certainly departed from us by now, and I pray that they've reached the poles successfully, even if they're not given the chance to see home. They can see the most desirable of goals. I also pray that it was the most gentle of cold that stripped the men of their lives, for I can't stand to bear the alternative. If we leave for our southward-bound vessel tomorrow, this shall be my last entry, and one I am very glad to make. Cabot remembers nothing of the journey, and both myself and Salem have agreed not to speak of it ever again. He's even gone so far as to burn his own journal, yet I cannot subject myself to the destruction of my own. Vainly so, I suppose. Warmly, Peter Whitehead. Hey there kids, it's me, MrCreepyPasta, and I just wanted to tell you thank you so much for watching tonight's video. Or listening to tonight's podcast on the podcast, if you're listening to that there at Spotify or Apple Podcasts or Google Podcasts or wherever you can happen to listen to podcasts. Also, I just want to take a quick second to tell you guys about HorrorConVR. HorrorConVR is actually a horror convention that I'm putting together with a group of my friends who are YouTube horror creators and other horror creators and just sometimes VRChat creators and things like that. You can find out more at HorrorConVR.com or follow us on Twitter at horror_VR. It's going to be hosted on VRChat in October, and the best part is you do not need a VR headset to be able to join and play. So check out those places, join us on Discord, and we do meetups every Saturday, which is fun. And of course, I wanted to give a big thank you to everyone who checks out patreon.com/MrCreepyPasta and supports the show, keeps the light on, gives me treats for my now 2 cats, both Hylas and Hercules. Both of them are a handful. And especially a big thank you to Saha, Jordan Alexander Sanchez, Mazikeen, Ken Lando Higuchi, Chompski, Nico kaeo, Tristain Pelton, Stephen VanHuss, Chance Burnett, Diana Kraus, G. Weevil 3, TheRedOakShieldVirus, Hades' Nephew, Carter Barenfanger, Dr. Strawberry, Jordan Wayne Deckard, Bradney Leipe, The Government Monitoring System, Ann Charron, rumblefox, AcidSystem, Mike Bullock, Raphael Rodriguez, Dan Sweet, Mad Marstomp, Prozac and Pancake Appreciation Society, Sean Mills, Brian Arce, Cryptic Nightmares, Shadow Morningstar, Somber Puppet, Brianna Wright, Someone You Love, Said the King 56, Bad Honey, S-Man, Kiri the Sloth, Patrick Schoolmeister, Thomas Burgett, Barbara Maceo, Bobby Carmen, Liam Newman, The Homeless Bird 93, Sky Harbor, Caleb Dougal, Last Blade Song, Eliminator 86, The Ginger Bros, Aaron Stormcrow, and Corey X Kenshin. A big thank you to all of you guys and everybody down there in the description. I really can't thank you guys enough for supporting the show. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And everybody who listens, sweet dreams.